In this lecture, let me explain about how to analyze exception vector table in Arm version 8 architecture. If you review this exception vector table for the first time, it is hard for you to understand this exception vector table. Why it is hard to understand this exception vector table? The reason is this exception vector table that cover various scenarios in the system. So if you listen to what I'm talking about, I'm sure that you will understand how exception vector table is organized, and then you will have the ability to interpret each item. The first, before you analyze this exception vector table, one thing you have to remember is that when the ARM core generate exception, the program counter is branched into exception vector table. The main reason I point out that these rules repeatedly is that exception vector table specify the way to branch into exception vector address. The key principle is that this one, when the program counter is branched into exception vector address, the ARM core add two values. First value is exception vector entry address, and another value is offset. So I want to point out that this offset is found in exception vector table. This offset is extremely important when the ARM core will branch into the exception vector table. Usually, the Viva EL1 register holds the starting address of exception vector base address. So ARM core identify the data of this system register, and ARM core will add the offset, and then ARM core can branch into exception vector address. Now that I introduced the primary concept of exception vector table, let me explore another item, that is exception taken from. This row indicate the exception level at the time of exception. So it states that exception taken from is based on the information of exception level. So exception level is corresponding to privilege level. The lowest privilege level is corresponding to exception level 0, and highest privilege level is exception level 3. So what this terminology means is that this law indicates that exception level at the time of exception. Another thing you have to understand is current exception level. What is current exception level in the law? The current exception level in the table is exception level 1 or exception level 2 or exception level 3. Reason is that x is greater than 0. So this means that current exception level cannot be exception level 0. That's why I specify that current exception level can be exception level 1, exception level 2, exception level 3. So if the current exception level is exception level 1, what is the lower exception level? The lower exception level in this case is exception level 0. So if you specified current exception level as exception level 1, then naturally, then exception level 0 could be lower exception level. So if you specified current exception level, I think it will be a little bit easy for you to understand each item. So in this lecture, I introduced several items or columns to understand the exception vector table. The next lecture, let me explore another item to understand exception vector table.